Do you sometimes feel like you and your spouse are speaking entirely different languages when it comes to household responsibilities or parenting decisions? Well, if that is you, today we're breaking down the fears approach, which is a simple but powerful method for understanding each other better and resolving those conflicts much more effectively. So stick around and learn how to turn those challenging moments into chances for growth and reconnection. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're exploring a topic that touches honestly every marriage out there, and that is managing conflict. Every one of our unique backgrounds shape our reactions, and we can learn simple ways to reconnect when those triggers threaten to disconnect us, because let's be honest, they do again and again. And I am no different. I'm going to start with a story that happened to me actually just last week, and I thought it would really resonate with you because sometimes you feel like you're the only one, and you are absolutely not. So I was in the middle of a lot of deadlines, working very efficiently, very hard, and diligently so I could get everything done when my husband came in and asked me to print something for him on my work computer. Sounds super simple, I know. Even looking back, I'm a little bit sheepish about this. But in that moment, I felt this frustration and this resentment. It was almost as if this switch had been flipped, and I was suddenly transported back to the early years of our marriage. Now, before I go back into that a little bit more, I want to talk briefly about how our reactions in marriage stem from those past experiences, just like I responded, and the family cultures that we grew up in. Each couple brings a unique background to their relationship, and it can be very challenging. I know that you know this. This is probably something that has come up regularly for you and your relationship. So there's the family of origin. How we were raised shapes our expectations and our reactions in our marriage relationship. And then there are the trigger points. Certain situations can activate those old patterns and cause these inappropriate reactions, like in the case of me being really irritated when my husband asked me to do something that would maybe take me 90 seconds to 5 minutes. Dr. John Gottman is a relationship expert, and he said the following: every couple has what I call a perpetual problem, which is like a trick knee. When the weather changes, the knee starts to hurt. When the stress level in a relationship changes, the trick knee of the relationship starts to hurt. So in my case, I was feeling the pressure of those deadlines, and so my stress level goes up a little bit. Even though I didn't feel like I was overwhelmed, I was needing to work hard and efficiently in a short amount of time, and that did increase my stress. So again, my trigger moment was being asked to print something while I was busy working, and that triggered some memories of the first decade of our marriage. And I realized I was telling myself a story, like we all do. Again, please apply this to yourself because you probably do it maybe 3 times a day. I don't know, maybe more, maybe less, but we do it all the time, whether it's with our spouse, with our kids, with our friends. But this is what I was telling myself, the story. He's using me again because he knows I feel too guilty to say no. Or I'm always the easier option and I enable him. Or I'm not treating myself as an equal to my husband or my kids. And what I mean by that is I would just bite my tongue a lot of times and just do what other people needed, even though I knew very well that he could do it himself. He had his own computer. He could ask a few questions to get it working again, but it was just easier for him to ask me to take care of it. And I know he wasn't thinking that in his head, but that was what was coming up as I was triggered. Meanwhile, my husband had his own narrative. He was likely saying things like, she's so focused on work and it's more important than helping someone in need. Or, I can't ask her for help, it's best not to need any assistance. Or, it's not that big of a deal, why do I have to feel bad about asking for her help? Those types of things. Like we're each saying a narrative, whether it's for a big thing or a silly thing like printing a piece of paper, whatever it might be. Now, I want to talk about what we actually did and how we got out of this cycle that is so easy to slip back into. I developed a method called the FEARS method, so FEARS. And I've mentioned this before, but this is something that my couples and my families want help with over and over and over again. So It deserves regular refreshing. And what that stands for is feelings, experience, activators, responsibility, and strategy. So I want to start with feelings. You start by acknowledging and expressing your emotions without blame. So in my example, I said something like, I felt frustrated and overwhelmed when you asked me to print something while I was working, instead of just asking a simple question on how to fix the computer. And then the next part, E for experience, that's when you describe the experience of the situation and listen to your partner's perspective. And from my example, I could have said something simple like this. I don't remember exactly how I said it, but from my point of view, it felt like my work hours weren't being respected. It felt like you were coming to me to fix the problem instead of figuring it out yourself. Can you help me understand what you were experiencing? And then you go to A for activators. This is where you explore those triggers and then look past the experiences that might be influencing your reaction. So again, for mine, this reminded me of times in the past when I felt like I'm always putting myself last. And you and the kids often know that I would just drop things and do things to help you. But that filled me with resentment, and that was really hard over time because at that time I didn't stand up for myself very much. I just thought that it was helping, but it was really to my detriment. And you don't even have to go into that much detail, but you can share what you want to share without it getting too big. And then the next part is R for responsibility. So this is where you take ownership in the conflict. I simply could have said something here like, I realize I haven't been clear about my boundaries and when I'm available to help. Or, I realize I haven't told you how to work that home computer if sometimes it won't print. Something like that where, hey, I'm going to take ownership from my part. And then S is for strategy. So that is where you work together to create a plan for handling similar situations in the future. Again, in my situation, let's just agree on a signal I can use when I'm deep in work mode and I can't be interrupted. And if you would please respect that, and I will try to use it sparingly when I really need it. And maybe we can even agree on something else where you could signify that it would be less than 5 minutes, or I can get to it when I have a break, or something like that. Esther Perel is a relationship counselor. I love her stuff. And she said this: the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. So do we want our relationships to thrive? Do we want to work out these little struggles, or do we let them build and have that increased pressure cooker or that volcano building where we just lash out and people are really confused because likely printing a piece of paper was not the issue here. It was being a little stressed. It was not setting clear boundaries. It was not communicating maybe that building resentment of different requests that are interrupting my workflow again and again and not stopping them early on or communicating about them early on. There's lots of different layers to this. And my husband wasn't wrong to ask for help. We all need to ask for help sometimes, and that's okay. And I'm not wrong for setting boundaries either when I'm interrupted and when I'm in workflow and I have a lot of deadlines. It's okay to say no sometimes. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what actually happened in this situation. I gave myself some time to cool down a little bit. Not that I was really worked up, but I was feeling activated. My husband and I sat down and we applied this. Now, we've done this often enough that I didn't have to go through each letter very carefully, but you do in the beginning. And I did say something like that, like, I feel frustrated and resentful when you asked me to print something when I was working. And my husband said something like, I felt dismissed and unimportant when you respond that way to a request. I described feeling like my work time wasn't respected, and my husband shared that he felt like he couldn't ask for help without creating an issue. And then I realized that these triggering memories of overgiving in the past and not asserting my needs contributed to this, and I shared that. And my husband recognized that it activated his fear of being a burden, which we both had at times. I then acknowledged that I hadn't been very clear about my work boundaries, and I still think I could take that a step further. And my husband took responsibility for not learning how to troubleshoot the printer and coming to me instead of doing that step first. So then that strategy part, I realized actually after I was doing this, I'm like, oh, sometimes we forget that part. But that could have been just creating a simple do not disturb signal for when I'm in that deep work mode. And my husband committed to trying to figure things out himself for the first little bit, even if he thinks it's easy. If it's during those work hours, to respect that, unless it's something where he really needs me and it makes sense to interrupt me for something like that, or else he can simply text me and I can give him help if it's not time sensitive. Now let's look at how this approach can work in different scenarios. So maybe you and your spouse or partner get activated or triggered when it comes to dividing up household chores. A client of mine had a similar situation like that, and she felt overwhelmed by all of her household responsibilities while her partner seemed completely oblivious. So I counseled her to use this approach. And this is what she ended up saying to her partner. She expressed feeling overwhelmed and unappreciated, and they both shared their perspectives on those household duties. And then my client recognized that she felt triggered because of those memories of her mom doing everything at home. And they both acknowledged their role in that imbalance and then created a chore chart and agreed to check it weekly about household responsibilities and then report on that on like a Sunday meeting or that family planning that they did. And all of the family can get involved in that. Now, it wasn't seamless. It took her a few different tries to make this work, but it did eventually work. And you'll need to practice that yourself. Now, you don't have to say like, okay, now F, now E, now A, although that can definitely help. But getting into that pattern of doing all of those steps. Another couple I work with was struggling with different parenting styles, and I did the same thing. I walked them through how to do this. And in session, we tried this out. And both of them expressed that frustration and concern about their child's behavior. And they shared their views on that discipline and that structure, as well as looking at their activators. And unsurprisingly, they traced that back to another time in their life when they felt frustrated by how they were raised and the disciplining that was being done. And they were able to express that in our counseling session. And after that, they each took responsibility and acknowledged being inflexible in this situation. And then the key part is they agreed to research parenting techniques together and then present this united front to their kids. That responsibility and that strategy at the very end, those are really important parts of that fears method. I think often my husband and I forget those parts. Like we make amends, we move on, we repair. But if you're not doing that second step of taking responsibility and creating a strategy or a plan, then it's not as helpful. You just get back into that same pattern again and again. And it does take humility. Dr. Sue Johnson developed EFT, and I use a lot of her methods in my couples counseling. But she said this: the most functional way to regulate difficult emotions in a love relationship is to share them. So often we don't share them, right? We think that it is not going to benefit anything. It's going to turn into a fight. Maybe we don't understand them ourselves. So getting in that habit of sitting down and just having a brief conversation. This does not have to be long. And often when it is long, it creates more issues. So just wrapping up what I talked about today, our reactions in marriage are often shaped by our past experiences and our family cultures. Super normal. But if we use that fears approach, remember feelings, experiences, activators, responsibilities, strategies, that can help us manage those conflicts more effectively. And when we communicate openly, then there is this greater understanding and empathy for each other's views and perspectives. When we take responsibility and own our part, we're able to work together more effectively, and that strengthens our relationship and ultimately improves our fulfillment. My friends, every couple faces challenges. Sometimes I'm embarrassed by the conflict my husband and I have because I just think I should be above this. And yet it's part of the human experience, and I keep reminding myself that we are trying. Working together is challenging. Collaborating is challenging, especially for me when I am pretty independent and very focused. It's hard to pause and work through things, but it does make my life and my family life so much better. When we approach this a certain way, with that humility and that willingness to improve, that determines the strength of our relationship and the longevity of it overall. When we can understand those triggers and communicate openly, as well as work together to find those solutions, we can turn these conflicts into opportunity for growth and deeper connection. And I know so many of us want that so badly, to really connect deeper with our spouse, our partner, instead of just feeling like roommates. Thank you for joining us today on Fulfillment Therapy, my friends. Don't forget to check out our courses on fulfillmenttherapy.org/courses. We have one for personal growth, marriage, parenting, as well as 3 for starting your own business to become a podcaster and have that online passive income. Both the wellness courses and the business courses are specifically designed to increase your fulfillment and help you spread those positive ripples. Until next time, I'm Kendra Nielsen, wishing you that deeper fulfillment and connection in your relationships and in life. I'll see you back here with a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.